The Foster family lives in a quiet neighborhood in Fairview, a place where everyone admires their perfect appearance. The Foster house is a villa-style home that exudes luxury, with a well-maintained white fence, a garden that is always in full bloom, and an atmosphere that always carries a touch of romance of a peaceful suburban area. If anyone were to take a look, they would see the perfect combination of Peter and Maria, a successful surgeon with a polished appearance and a young, talented wife, a beautiful artist with passion and a rising career. They are an ideal model that people around them constantly admire, as if everything in their lives was perfect. Peter, 42, is a talented surgeon, renowned in the medical field not only for his skill in surgeries, but also for his professionalism and dedication to his work. Since his ex-wife Linda passed away in a traffic accident, Peter has had to endure the pain of loss. He is a man of few words, emotionally reserved, but inside him is a large heart that always wants to give his family the best of everything. 3 years later, Peter decides to remarry Maria, a 35-year-old, beautiful, and talented artist. Maria is the only one who helped him regain his joy in life. She came like a breath of fresh air, bringing not only youth, but also warmth to this family that Peter had longed for. With her eyes bright with passion and confidence in life, Maria quickly integrated and helped Peter regain balance in his life after a great shock. Maria is a strong woman, with skilled hands that create sparkling works of art. She not only brings sweetness, but also is an incredible source of spiritual support for Peter. From the outside, their family appears to be a perfect picture. Behind family photos on social media, elegant dinners with wine, lies the harmony that everyone desires. People in this neighborhood admire them, always saying that Peter has a fulfilled life, a wonderful family, with a beautiful young wife and a well-behaved daughter. Surely, with a husband like Peter, Maria wouldn't have to worry about anything. Yet, within the walls of this seemingly flawless home, there is a secret gradually revealing itself that only those involved can truly understand. Lily, Peter's daughter, is the only child in the family. Since her mother passed away, she has had to endure the pain of loss and a life lacking affection. Lily, 17, is a beautiful but rebellious girl with long brown hair and sharp eyes. She is the epitome of stubbornness and defiance, never accepting anything she dislikes. Though she tries to appear strong, deep inside is a pain she cannot express. Losing her mother at such a young age, Lily never truly formed a close relationship with Peter. Her mother's image always lingers in her mind, and no one can replace her in her heart. Maria's arrival made Lily feel even more pushed aside. She could not accept that her father loved another woman, and she especially couldn't accept Maria becoming her stepmother. To Lily, Maria is not someone she can accept into her life, no matter how wonderful she is. Maria's attempts to reach out and build a close relationship with her were met with outright rejection. Lily felt abandoned, having no place in her new family, and that pain grew inside her. Maria tried to build a bridge by organizing family cooking nights, inviting Lily to participate in the artistic activities she loved, but all of those efforts were ignored by Lily. The girl never joined, and at times, Lily intentionally created situations to make Maria uncomfortable. Whenever Peter was away, Lily would relentlessly find ways to make Maria feel lonely and lost in the home she had once imagined as a perfect haven. Peter, throughout this time, was too busy with work. Though he was a father who loved his daughter dearly, he couldn't find the time to understand Lily's feelings. Meanwhile, he always placed Maria in an important position, trying to bring happiness to her while seeking stability in the family. He didn't realize that things were gradually falling apart, that there was a gap between Maria and Lily that he couldn't see, or perhaps didn't want to face. With all things seeming perfect, The foster family seemed to live in a strong wall, but inside, there were deep cracks that no one noticed. Lily, with a pain she could not share, created a silent war, and no one knew that she wouldn't stop until the feeling of injustice in her heart was satisfied. Maria, with all her sincerity and hope, couldn't imagine that she herself would become the target of a quiet but cruel attack from the girl she had tried to love. The seemingly perfect family story would soon face a crisis that even the people involved could not have anticipated. As time passes, Maria's efforts to connect with Lily grow more exhausting and futile. Although Maria always tries to approach Lily with patience and kindness, Lily's negative emotions weigh heavily on their relationship like large stones. Every time Maria tries to get closer, the doors to Lily's heart close. The 17-year-old girl has built an invisible wall, and the more Maria tries, the greater the distance between them becomes. Maria feels like she's standing in front of an impassable cliff, but she refuses to give up. For Maria, things have never been easy. Every time Peter is away for work, her conversations with Lily are filled with an undeniable tension. On some mornings, when Peter prepares to leave the house, Maria gently encourages Lily to join her in making breakfast, but Lily bluntly refuses, even saying hurtful things. "I'm not your maid." These words leave Maria stunned for a moment, but she chooses silence, not wanting to argue. However, that is the first sign Maria realizes that she cannot replace Lily's mother in the girl's life. Lily not only resists Maria with silence, but also through subtle yet challenging actions. Each time Maria invites her to join activities, Lily always finds reasons to avoid her, like saying she has homework, something to do, or simply doesn't want to. During family gatherings, Lily never looks Maria in the eye, and whenever they speak, she always finds ways to avoid her, or even mocks Maria's attempts. These jokes from Lily not only hurt Maria, but also make the family atmosphere even more suffocating. Maria starts to sense Lily's growing coldness. On the evenings when the whole family gathers around the dinner table, Maria always feels like she's sitting in the middle of a silent battle. Peter tries to create a peaceful atmosphere, but he never understands how Maria feels when she realizes that Lily does not accept her presence. Maria tries to make the dishes Lily likes, organize special evenings, just so the family can sit together. But the result is always silence and distant remarks from Lily, as if she is trying to create a separate, distant space. When Peter is not home, Maria often feels like a stranger in her own home. Though Maria constantly tries to build connections, every time Peter comes back, he doesn't realize that Lily's actions are not just simple teenage rebellion, but silent, painful resistance. The girl seems to be trying to erase Maria's presence from the family. Although Maria has shared her feelings of loneliness with Peter many times, he responds only with promises that time will make everything better. Peter doesn't realize that the more he relies on time, the worse things are getting. On one occasion, Maria decides to organize an open conversation evening between the three of them, hoping to ease the tension. She prepares a dinner with Lily's favorite dish and tries to create an intimate atmosphere. But Lily doesn't come. Instead, she sneaks out and only returns when the meal is almost over. When Maria asks where she went, Lily coldly replies, "I went out. Nothing important." Despite Peter trying to keep the atmosphere light, he fails to sense the discrepancy between Maria and Lily, the invisible gaps they both have in their hearts. The tension grows even more as Maria not only feels the coldness from Lily, but also has to endure the subtle criticism from her. Once, when Peter was away, Lily deliberately left scattered notes all over the living room with hidden messages like, "She's not my mother. She can't replace my mother." Maria discovered these notes while cleaning up and felt her heart being torn apart. Lily's words were like sharp knives stabbing her. making her heart ache. But instead of reacting, Maria remains silent, not wanting to stir things up, even though she feels deeply hurt. The feeling of being pushed out doesn't only appear when Lily is around. Every time Maria enters a room, she always feels like she's an outsider, a ghost in this house. Lily's words, though unclear, feel like tiny stones thrown into her heart, each one poking another hole in her soul. She begins to doubt whether she can continue maintaining this family, whether she can truly become a part of this family when Lily never accepts her. During sleepless nights, Maria reflects on what's been happening. At times, she wonders if she's the reason this family is falling apart. But then she reassures herself that things can improve if all family members work together and spend time understanding each other better. However, a part of her still doubts whether Peter can stand between two women in his life and maintain fairness. Day by day, these conflicts seem to deepen, and Maria feels the coldness in the family's atmosphere whenever Lily and she are together. Peter, despite trying to mediate, doesn't realize that the silence and the distance are slowly killing the relationship in his family. Maria begins to feel like an outsider, standing on the sidelines of a family she longs to be part of. She understands that she needs to face the reality that not all love and effort can change someone's heart, and that sometimes loving someone cannot solve all the problems they face. In Maria's mind, one question keeps repeating. Will Peter see what is happening in their family before it's too late? All these conflicts are just the beginning of a silent war, a battle within the family that is not easily overcome. Lily's silence, Maria's patience, and Peter's not strong enough love will force them all to face harsh truths that they have never dared to admit. The feelings of exhaustion and despair begin to creep into every thought of Lily, like powerful undercurrents beneath the surface. As each day passes, she feels herself being pushed further and further away, away from the family, away from her father, and away from any warmth that Maria might bring. In Lily's eyes, Maria has always been an intruder, a ghost trying to replace her mother, a woman who could never be her mother, no matter how hard Maria tried. She feels like a loser, a child abandoned in her own home, where everyone else is happy, except for her. Lily's actions gradually become worse as she doesn't just avoid Maria anymore, but actively works to sabotage the relationship between her father and his wife. Cruel jokes, veiled sarcasm, all become ways for Lily to express her rebellion. Every time Maria tries to get closer, Lily pushes her further away. Every time Peter speaks lovingly about Maria, Lily drowns in deep anger, jealousy, and an indescribable pain. Everything, from joyful dinners to peaceful mornings, becomes scars deeply etched in her heart. Lily no longer wants to see Maria, doesn't want to feel her presence in this house. The feeling of being rejected, of being pushed out, grows stronger and stronger in Lily's heart. She begins to think that if nothing changes, if she doesn't do something to soothe this pain, no one will ever understand her. But instead of seeking help, she isolates herself even more. She cannot share this pain with anyone, especially not her father. Lily cannot speak out about feeling abandoned, that Maria's presence is not just a replacement for her mother, but a painful reminder of her mother's death. No one can understand that feeling. Only Lily can feel the emptiness in her heart when she thinks of it. And then, one night, when everyone in the house had fallen asleep, Lily decided that she couldn't bear it any longer. In the quiet darkness of the house, she stood in front of the mirror in her room, staring into her own weary and wounded eyes. A sense of shame and helplessness overwhelmed her soul. Part of Lily wanted to scream, wanted to break down the walls she had built around herself. But another part of her wanted to remain silent, to hide in her sorrow. In her heart, despair reached its peak. She wondered whether she could ever overcome this loneliness, or if she would forever be drowned in the darkness of her hurt. Lily no longer sought forgiveness from Maria, no longer hoped her father would understand her pain. To her, the upheaval in the family had gone too deep, and living in this house, under this roof, with a stepmother she couldn't accept, had become a burden she couldn't continue to carry. In that moment, Lily felt she could no longer bear it. All those emotions surged until she couldn't control them anymore, and her decision became an irreversible turning point. She entered the bathroom, took a small knife she had found in an old drawer. She stared at it for a long time, not because she wanted to hurt herself, but because it felt like a way to release the inner restraint. Every time she looked at it, Lily felt a sense of release, a release from the suffering and the feeling of abandonment. She told herself she could do this, that this was the only way to end the pain. Fear and anxiety began to rise within Lily as she touched the cold blade. Part of her wanted to stop, to call her father, to cry out for help, but another part of her believed no one would understand, no one would see what she had been through. That was when Peter entered. In the stillness of the night, the air around them seemed to freeze when he saw Lily standing there, eyes swollen with tears, holding the knife, her face full of despair. Everything inside him collapsed. Peter didn't speak. He simply walked closer and knelt down before Lily, his eyes filled with pain and worry. "What are you doing, Lily?" Peter's voice trembled, his gaze filled with utter fear. Lily couldn't answer immediately. She just stood there, staring at her father, tears falling like rain. Finally, she lowered her head, biting her lip as if afraid that if she spoke, the entire world would crumble. "I feel like I have no one anymore, Mom." And now Lily choked, her words breaking in the air. "I just want to be loved, just want to stay in a family, without feeling like I'm being pushed out." Peter heard these words, and his heart felt like it was being torn apart. Everything had gone beyond his imagination. He didn't know what Lily had been enduring all this time. He didn't realize that his daughter had reached this point. "My daughter, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you had to go through so much. I was wrong. I didn't see you," Peter said, his voice thick with emotion. He couldn't believe that he had let his daughter fall into this state. Peter gently reached out and hugged Lily, even though she resisted. But in that moment, they both sensed a truth that Peter had never realized. Lily's suffering wasn't because of Maria, but because of the lack of love and attention Peter hadn't given her. Lily's pain didn't stem from the woman she couldn't accept, but from the father she loved, but felt abandoned by. That night, Peter held Lily in his arms, promising that he would do everything to never let her feel abandoned again. Maria, though deeply hurt, also realized that she needed to change her approach, not just with Lily, but with herself as well. From here, their family story would enter a phase full of challenges and change. As Maria walked out of the house, her heart was filled with pain and disappointment. This wasn't the first time Maria had felt alone in this marriage, but this time, the hurt had surpassed her limit. After countless efforts to bond with Lily, after trying so many times to build a complete family, she realized she could never replace the mother Lily had lost. The constant conflict, the coldness, and the hostility she faced from Peter's daughter had left her with no strength to continue the battle. On that day, when Peter went on a business trip, Maria decided she could wait no longer. Tired of the never-ending arguments, the feeling of loneliness in her own home, and being pushed out of the family, Maria wrote a short letter to Peter. In it, she not only explained the reason for leaving, but also expressed her disappointment in how Peter had failed to recognize the increasing tension in their family. She said she needed time to think, to find herself, and to no longer live in a relationship full of pain and misunderstandings. With her growing pregnant belly, Maria left quietly, carrying all the dreams and hopes that once tied her to this family. She found a small apartment far from Peter's house, a place where she could be at peace, where there were no tensions or harsh words from Lily. But inside Maria, the questions remained unanswered. Could she return after everything had been turned upside down? Would Peter ever understand her choice? When Peter returned, the house felt cold, as if covered by a thick layer of ice. While he kept thinking about work and the projects he had to finish, the absence of Maria left him feeling empty. As he entered the room, Peter saw the letter Maria had left on the table, a cold letter devoid of the sweet words he had once heard from her. In the letter, Maria simply wrote that she needed time to think and that she could no longer live in a family environment full of tension and lacking empathy. All of Peter's emotions surged within him. He felt as if he had been hit by a strong shock, as if everything had crumbled beneath his feet. But instead of facing the truth, instead of trying to understand the deeper reasons for Maria leaving, Peter became caught up in the things Lily had said earlier. Lily had told him that Maria often wouldn't let her eat her favorite foods, that Maria treated her badly, and that she felt like she no longer had a place in the family. Lily had said that Maria wasn't just a new wife, but an intruder into her space. And all of this made Peter believe that Maria was the cause of the family's dysfunction. In his anger and disappointment, Peter could not see that his daughter had lied. Lily's words caused an emotional shock to him. Although deep down Peter felt something wasn't right, he didn't want to doubt Lily. He had become so used to trusting her, to believing his daughter's words without ever questioning their truth. That's why Peter decided to distance himself from Maria, believing she was the cause of the chaos in the family. In the following days, Peter's life was filled with sadness and emptiness. He returned to work with a heavy heart, but nothing could fill the gap that Maria had left in his heart. In the late working hours, when everyone else had gone home, Peter sat alone in his office, rereading Maria's letter and feeling as if he had done something wrong. However, he lacked the courage to face the truth, that he had been wrong, that his ignorance and blind trust in Lily had pushed Maria out of his life. When Maria was in her new apartment, she didn't have it easy either. In the early days, she tried to find peace within herself. Although her pregnant belly was growing, the feeling of being lost in the empty room made Maria feel even lonelier. She missed Peter, the happy moments when the family was still together. But those memories quickly faded as she thought about what Lily had done and the words of Peter that she could never forget. She kept thinking about the future, about the child in her womb, and whether she would have the strength to overcome everything. But she couldn't stop asking herself if Peter would ever realize that she left because of those misunderstandings. Would he ever understand that she only wanted a harmonious family, one without hostility and conflict? Maria felt exhausted, but she also realized that if she didn't leave, this family would never be a happy place for her and her child. During this time, both Peter and Maria lived in the loneliness they had created. Maria, with her decisiveness, did what she thought was best for herself and her child, while Peter, with his blind faith in his daughter, gradually lost the most precious thing in his life, something he had never truly realized. Nothing would ever return to how it was before, and the days ahead would be full of challenges for both of them. The love between Maria and Peter, though still there, had been tested by lies, a lack of understanding, and painful silences they couldn't overcome. And only when Peter faced the truth would he realize that everything had gone too far to be saved. For the past week, Peter had felt like he was living in a nightmare. Despite his constant efforts to reassure himself that everything would be fine, that Maria just needed time to think, deep down, he could sense a void, something lost that he could never get back. The house, once full of laughter and warmth, now felt weighed down by silence. Peter tried to focus on his work, but Maria's gaze, her smile, and the nights they had spent talking together all kept swirling in his mind, making it impossible for him to find peace. Lily had also changed over the past few days. She was no longer rebellious or oppositional as she had been before. Instead, she became quiet and withdrawn. Peter thought this was a good sign, an opportunity for the family to heal, but he failed to realize that Lily's silence was hiding a secret he knew nothing about. She not only accepted Maria's departure, but was also living in a world of her own, where Peter was the only one she could trust to maintain a false sense of security. One late afternoon, when Peter returned home after a long day at work, he sensed something was different in the air. Lily had come home early, sitting quietly in the living room, not the usual playful self she had been. She was holding her phone, staring at the screen as if she were talking to someone. But when she noticed Peter's presence, she quickly shoved the phone into her pocket, as though by instinct. This made Peter feel uneasy, but he brushed it off, thinking he was overthinking things. However, as he entered his office, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden from him. Peter sat down at his desk, but the thoughts kept swirling in his head. Suddenly, he heard a faint whisper from the living room. It was the sound of a conversation, and since the house wasn't very large, Lily's voice seemed to echo through the air. Peter didn't intend to eavesdrop, but her words made it impossible for him to ignore. Though they were just small sentences, they made Peter's heart tighten. He could clearly hear Lily talking to someone, her voice soft but oddly strange. "It's not my fault. Maria left because she couldn't handle the difficulties I created. Dad will believe me. I just need a little more time before he completely turns his back on her," Lily said, her tone sounding confident yet revealing an undercurrent of manipulation. Peter froze, his heart pounding in his chest, trying to breathe quietly so as not to be detected. But the more he listened, the more he felt like he was falling into a deep hole. Lily was speaking to someone, and the words she said shattered everything Peter thought he understood about his family. In that moment, a storm of emotions hit him, and everything he thought he knew about his family was now in question. "Dad will understand. Everything will be fine," Lily continued, her voice smooth as if reassuring someone. "She's not my mom. She's not someone I can accept. She'll never replace my mom. She left because she couldn't face me anymore. And now, Dad will be mine." Peter stood frozen. Those words felt like a punch in the gut. The pain sliced through him, like an invisible knife. The girl he loved most, the daughter he thought he understood, was now saying such things about Maria. He couldn't believe he was hearing these words from Lily. Part of him didn't want to believe it, didn't want to face this harsh truth. But there was no denying it. Lily's words were clear, cold, and without hesitation. Peter felt as if he had been thrown out of his own home, cast aside by his own daughter. He couldn't comprehend how Lily could do this, how she could lie and betray his trust to this extent. Everything seemed to crumble, each word from Lily digging deeper into his heart, causing all the trust he had built over the years to suddenly fall apart. He was too drained to stand. Peter walked out of his office, his heart heavy as if carrying a burden he couldn't discard. As he entered the living room, where Lily was still sitting, he didn't speak. He just stood there, staring at her. Lily, noticing his gaze, looked down at her hands, as though unaware of what had just transpired. Peter stared at her, feeling like he was looking at a complete stranger. "What did you just say, Lily?" His voice choked, struggling to get the words out. Lily looked up at Peter, her eyes defensive, as if she had already prepared for this conversation. "I just want you to understand that Maria isn't my mother. She can't love me like my mother did," Lily replied, her tone cold. Peter looked at Lily, his gaze filled with pain and disappointment. Everything was clear now, but he couldn't accept that he had been deceived all this time. "Lily, What have you done? He whispered, too exhausted to argue. Lily's words, the betrayal she had caused, made Peter feel like he was lost in a daze. He didn't know what to do, didn't know what to say to fix things. And in that moment, he realized that he had let lies guide him, pushing Maria out of their family without realizing she was the one who brought peace, the one who truly loved and cared for the family. They both sat in silence, neither saying anything more. Peter turned and walked out of the room, not in anger, but in utter disappointment. Meanwhile, Lily sat there, unaware that she had begun to shatter everything the family had built. The truth had finally been revealed, and now Peter couldn't go back. But the consequences of it, the wounds he had to bear, were the most frightening part. After overhearing Lily's phone call, everything inside Peter suddenly turned upside down. The emotions he thought he had under control now became a storm that ravaged his mind. Lily's words about Maria not being a replacement mother, about Lily not being able to accept Maria, felt like sharp arrows piercing his heart. Each of his daughter's words seemed to pull him farther away from Maria, making him unable to avoid blaming himself for believing in the lies. The truth about his family, about the love between him and Maria, now seemed like a shattered picture, with pieces too broken to form a complete image. Peter could no longer sit idle and wait. He knew he had been wrong, and even though it might be too late, he had to go find Maria to apologize. A sense of anxiety and unease filled his chest, but at the same time, a strong determination grew within him. He could not let misunderstandings and lies continue to destroy his family. Although he didn't know if Maria would still want to meet him, Peter knew that he had to do something to save everything. That morning, Peter didn't hesitate. He drove straight to the small apartment where Maria was living. His heart pounded in his chest. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, but he could not stop. With each kilometer that passed, he felt the weight of what he had caused and the pain of not being able to undo the lost time. He knew Maria had endured a lot, not just from the conflict with Lily, but also from his own lack of understanding and his silence. These thoughts made him even more determined to face her, to apologize, and to show Maria that he would do everything to make things right. When he arrived, Peter stopped the car in front of Maria's apartment, which now seemed so unfamiliar. He stood still for a moment, as if afraid to enter, fearing he would make things worse. But then, he took a deep breath, got out of the car, and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavier, but there was no turning back. He knocked on the door, his heart pounding as if it would explode. Maria opened the door, and immediately, her gaze met Peter's, but there was no greeting or smile. She just stood there, silently looking at him, as if waiting for an explanation. Peter could see the exhaustion in Maria's eyes, the frustration, and the sorrow that had built up inside her for so long. But there was no accusation, no questions. Maria just stood there, quietly waiting. Maria, Peter began, his voice choked. I know I've been wrong. I believe the lies, and I've hurt you. Hurt this family. I can't change the past, but I want you to know that I understand everything now. Maria didn't respond, only silently gazed at him, her eyes still sad but no longer angry. Peter could feel the resilience in her eyes, the pain she couldn't hide. I don't know what you've had to endure. I didn't see what was happening between you and Lily, but now I understand. And I'm sorry, Maria. Please don't leave me. Don't leave this family. Maria remained still, not answering immediately. A few seconds passed before she finally spoke, her voice soft but tinged with pain. Peter, I don't need your apology. I just need you to understand. I tried so hard to fit in, to build this family. But I feel like I've been pushed out, abandoned by the person I love. I can't live in lies, in these falsehoods. Peter listened, taking in every word Maria said. He knew that this wasn't just a misunderstanding between him and Maria, but deep wounds she had suffered. He knew his apologies might not be enough to heal those wounds, but he couldn't help but try. Maria, I love you, Peter said, his eyes filled with determination. I'll do anything to change, to start over. I can't live without you. I can't live in a family without you. Maria looked at him for a long moment, as if she were weighing every word he said. In her eyes, there was weariness, a sense of hopelessness, but also a glimmer of hope. Maria knew that, even though she had endured so much pain, Peter's love for her was still there. And in that moment, Maria decided that she wouldn't leave forever. She needed time, space to think for herself, but Peter's love made her want to try. Not because she wasn't still in pain, but because she knew that maybe only true love could heal the deep wounds inside her. I can't forgive you right now, Peter, Maria said, her voice firm but not cold. But I'll give us a chance to fix everything. You have to prove that you really understand me, understand what I've been through. We'll start over, but you have to be the one to set an example. Peter nodded, his eyes lighting up as if a beam of light pierced through the darkness. I'll do everything, Maria. I promise. And then, in that moment, Peter knew their life wouldn't be easy, that many challenges and hardships lay ahead. But he also knew that only by both of them trying, facing the truth, and fixing the mistakes could they rebuild their family. Maria was not a replacement mother, not a woman who could not be replaced, but the woman he loved and the one he would never let go. As Peter left Maria's apartment, he felt a new sense of hope in his heart. Although the road ahead was long and difficult, at least now, they had begun a journey where he would never leave Maria and his family again. Peter entered the house as if he were a stranger, despite having lived there for years. Every corner, every chair, every lamp reminded him of the memories from a time long gone. But now, the space no longer felt warm, no longer a place for the family to gather, where laughter echoed through the winter evenings. What he felt now was emptiness, a vast void he had unknowingly created when he failed to recognize that he had lost the most valuable things in his life. Since Maria left, Peter had been consumed with regret. In the early days, he couldn't accept the truth that he had hurt her, that he was the one who pushed the woman he loved out of his life. Though he tried to convince himself that everything would be okay, deep down, Peter knew that what he needed to do now was not to comfort himself, but to take a decisive step to fix everything that was wrong. He could no longer live with that guilt. He could not let Maria feel abandoned. In the days since, Peter had lived in utter loneliness. He couldn't find peace in his work, nor could he find any comfort when he returned to the empty house. He missed Maria, missed the gentle gestures she showed, missed the evenings spent talking about dreams and the future. And the most painful part was realizing that he had unknowingly pushed her away, just because he believed Lily's lies. Maria's words in the small apartment echoed in his mind. I cannot live in the lies you don't understand. It was time to face the truth and fix everything. Peter decided to see Maria once more. He knew nothing would be easy, but he was willing to do anything to show her that he had realized his mistake and that he would never let this family fall apart. Maria opened the door and looked at him silently. There was no anger, no reproach, just a prolonged silence that made the air between them even more suffocating. Peter stood in front of her, full of determination, but unable to hide the pain in his eyes. He couldn't find the perfect words to express all his regret, but he knew that what he needed to say now wasn't an explanation, but sincerity in his actions. Maria, he started, his voice thick with emotion. I cannot change the past, but I can change the present. You may never forget what happened, but I want you to know that I regret it. I regret not standing by you. I regret believing the lies. I let you leave, let this family fracture, and I cannot forgive myself for that." Maria remained silent, her gaze still cold, but not out of anger. In her eyes was deep disappointment, the pain she had endured over the past months. She looked at Peter, and his words were not new. She had heard them from him before, but this time there was something in his eyes and voice that made her not turn away. Perhaps it was love, perhaps it was the sincerity she needed to see. "I couldn't live in a family like this, Peter." Maria spoke, her voice gentle, but full of determination. I tried so hard to fit in, to build a family that I thought was right. But I can't live in lies, in words you don't fully understand." Peter nodded, saying nothing more. He knew what Maria said was true. He had not understood her, had not seen the suffering she had endured. He had been lost in work, in his career, and had neglected her all this time. And now, only he could fix those mistakes. "I cannot love you the way you deserve if I don't truly understand you," Peter continued, his eyes full of understanding. "I don't just love you because you are the amazing woman I chose to be my wife. I love you because you are the only one who can teach me about true love, about forgiveness, about how to become a better person. I will do everything so that you feel you deserve a real family." Maria stood silent, looking at Peter for a long while. She didn't know what to say because, after all, his words could not erase the wounds she had suffered. But she felt the change in him, a change she had never seen before. It wasn't just empty words, but truth in his actions. Finally, Maria spoke, her voice softer. "I cannot forgive you immediately, Peter. I have been hurt too much, and I cannot forget what happened. But I will give you a chance to prove yourself. We both need time to heal, to start over. But I want you to know, I won't give up, and I don't want you to give up either." Peter looked into Maria's eyes, his heart filled with a strange feeling he had never felt before. It was relief, the hope that he could fix his mistakes, that this family could start over. He stepped closer, not to pressure her, but to show that he would do whatever he could to ease the pain she had been through. "I promise I will never let you feel lonely in this family again. I will do everything to rebuild trust so you can feel true love. You deserve that," Peter said, his voice firm and his eyes filled with sincerity. Maria looked at him, her heart filled with mixed emotions. She knew that their love still existed, that perhaps they could find what they had lost, but she also understood that the road ahead would not be easy. However, Maria realized that true love wasn't a perfect life, but the ability to face all challenges together, to overcome all storms. With Peter's promise and the forgiveness Maria offered him, they knew that this was just the beginning of a difficult but hopeful journey ahead. They would need to work hard, together rebuild trust, and build a family that they truly deserved. They both knew that only love and patience could heal all wounds. And with forgiveness, they would rediscover the happiness they once had. Peter entered the living room, his hands clenched, a sense of unease surrounding him. Their home, once filled with laughter, was now a place where he and Maria had shared dreams and beautiful memories. But now, every step he took felt like walking on thin ice. He knew the time had come to face the truths he had been avoiding for far too long, truths he could no longer run from. Lily was sitting on the sofa, her eyes no longer reflecting the defiance they usually held. Instead, there was emptiness, as if she had drained herself of all emotion, as though she had nothing left to lose. She sat there, silently staring out the window, seemingly unaware of Peter's presence. His heart ached as he looked at his daughter, but he also couldn't avoid the painful truth. His daughter had been the one to shatter this family. Peter stepped closer to her, each step feeling like a burden. But he knew this was the decisive moment, the time to make things clear with Lily. There were no other options but to confront the truth. Nothing could save him now if he continued to avoid it. Lily. Peter's voice softened, but the pain was still palpable. I need you to listen. What have you done? Do you know what you've caused? Lily didn't look at him, but her shoulders trembled slightly. A light breeze blew through the window, causing her hair to gently float in the air. But all that calm couldn't soothe the heavy atmosphere between father and daughter. She still didn't respond right away. It was the deepest silence Peter had ever felt from his daughter. His unspoken questions lingered in the air, but no one answered. What do you think of what you've done, Lily? Maria is your sister, the woman your father loves, and with whom I built our family. Why did you treat her like that? Peter continued, struggling to remain calm, but his emotions were a whirlwind inside. Do you understand that your actions have cost me the most important things in my life? Lily turned to him, her eyes cold beyond measure. She didn't cry, didn't get angry, but simply stared at her father like a stranger. I didn't do anything wrong, Dad, Lily said, her voice cold and firm. Maria is not my mother. She can't replace her. She doesn't understand me. She doesn't understand you. She's just another woman who came in and broke this family. Peter was stunned, unable to believe what he had just heard. Was this why Lily treated Maria like that? Just because she couldn't accept Maria into the family? Peter felt as though he had been shoved off a cliff, as if all the trust he had in his daughter had shattered in that moment. Lily, you're wrong. You can't use this excuse to justify your actions. You can't blame Maria for what's happened between us. She's not the one who broke this family. You did, Peter said, struggling to stay composed. Lily looked at him, her gaze empty. You always think I'm wrong, don't you? She asked, her voice soft but resolute. You always think I'm the one at fault, but you've never asked me how I feel. I couldn't accept Maria coming into this family and taking everything. My mom's gone, and I feel abandoned. All I ever wanted was for you to be with me. But now you don't understand me. Lily's words were like a slap to Peter's face. He stood still, unable to respond immediately. He looked into his daughter's eyes, and for a brief moment he understood. Lily had suffered the pain of losing her mother, and in her eyes, Maria wasn't a new wife. She was a replacement. Peter felt the loneliness and insecurity Lily had carried inside her all these years. But he also realized that this wasn't an excuse for her actions. Loss, pain, and loneliness could never justify her cruel behavior. Peter sat down, his head hanging low, a heavy feeling overwhelming him. You're right, Lily, he said, his voice sinking. I was wrong not to realize what you needed. I got too focused on what happened with Maria and forgot that you needed me too. I never understood the pain you were going through. But I want you to know, I've always loved you, and I promise I will do everything to never let you feel abandoned again. Lily stood up, saying nothing more. She turned and walked towards the window, where the light from outside shone through, but it didn't ease the tension in the air. Peter knew that what he had just said wouldn't immediately heal everything, but at least it was the first step towards reaching his daughter, towards fixing the mistakes he had made. You can forgive me, but Maria won't, Lily said, her voice still devoid of warmth, only coldness. I can't love her the way you love her, but I can learn to live with her. But I will never accept her as a replacement for my mom. Peter felt a pang in his heart when he heard those words. But at least Lily had opened up, had started to face the truth. He knew he couldn't force Lily to love Maria as he did. But he also knew that things could only change if they both faced the truth and learned to forgive each other. I'm not asking you to love Maria. I just need you to know that she's a part of this family, and I love her, Peter said, his voice firm. I will never let you feel abandoned again, Lily. I promise you. Lily didn't respond, but deep down, Peter felt a flicker of hope. Though the road ahead was long and fraught with challenges, at least they had taken the first step, a step towards understanding, forgiveness, and love. As Peter walked into the family therapy room, his heart weighed heavy, full of anxiety and fear. He knew this was a crucial step to save his family, but at the same time, he could feel the tension hanging in the air, as if all the divisions, the pain, and the doubts surrounded them. Maria sat beside him, and though she didn't speak, her silence was enough for Peter to understand that they were both waiting, uncertain of what would happen. Lily, his daughter, sat opposite them, her gaze still cold and defensive. She wasn't easy to read, keeping her emotions tightly guarded. Every time Peter and Maria's eyes met, it was a mixture of hope and doubt. Though they shared family bonds, it felt as though they were standing on fractured ground, each step requiring patience and trust to rebuild the broken relationships. Family therapy was not an easy decision. It was the first step toward facing unspoken emotions, unhealed wounds, and unresolved misunderstandings. Peter and Maria knew they had to do something not only to save their relationship, but also to rebuild a family where both children felt safe and loved. When the therapist, a middle-aged woman with silver hair and a deep, compassionate gaze, entered the room, she gently sat down in front of them. Her name was Dr. Lydia Chun, a renowned family psychologist known for her ability to connect with and guide families through difficult times. Dr. Chun smiled softly, but Peter could feel the understanding in her eyes. This wasn't the first time she had dealt with families in deep conflict, and Peter knew she would be the one to guide them through the challenging road ahead. Today, we're going to start with the emotions that haven't been expressed, Dr. Chin began, her voice calm yet firm. Each of us carries our own pain and anger. The goal of this session is for everyone to understand their own emotions and the emotions of others. This is an opportunity to reconnect with what has been lost. Peter looked at Maria, then at Lily, and then back to Dr. Chin. He felt as if all three of them were standing at a crossroads, where every decision would lead them down a different path. He took a deep breath and spoke. I've done so many things wrong in the past. I didn't realize I made my daughter feel abandoned, that I didn't understand Maria's pain. I only saw my own mistakes, not realizing that our family had been hurting for a long time. Lily didn't say anything, but she looked at her father coldly. Though she didn't speak directly, her gaze spoke volumes, revealing that Peter's words hadn't healed the hurt inside her. Maria placed her hand on Peter's shoulder, feeling his regret, but knowing this process couldn't be fixed overnight. Dr. Chin smiled gently and then said, Peter's feelings of guilt and pain are part of the process, but we also need to listen to Lily and Maria. This is an opportunity for all of you to express your feelings and help each other understand better. Lily, how do you feel about everything? Lily sat silently, her eyes fixed on her hands, unwilling to speak at first. She felt as though she had been thrown into a battle she didn't want to be a part of. But after a long silence, Lily finally spoke. I don't need Dad's apology. I don't need forgiveness. I just want Dad to be there. I want to feel like I still matter in this family. I can't accept Maria like this. I can't love her because she's not my mom, and I feel like I've been abandoned. Dr. Chin didn't interrupt Lily. She let her speak, knowing that expressing these emotions was the most important part of the therapy process, allowing everyone to voice their feelings without fear of judgment. After Lily finished, Dr. Chun turned her gaze toward Maria. Maria looked at Lily intently, then spoke, her voice patient yet full of hurt. Lily, I can't replace your mom, and I know that. I just want to build a family where everyone loves each other. I want us to live together, share the hardships and joys. But I also understand that I can't force you to love me. I just hope you don't feel lonely anymore. Peter felt a lump in his throat as he heard Maria speak. All the regret, all the sorrow flooded back. He knew that no matter how many times he apologized, No matter how hard he tried to change, the only thing that could heal this was time and patience. Dr. Chen spoke softly. This is a long process. No one can change overnight, but small steps like today are the foundation for rebuilding your relationship. Peter, Maria, Lily, you need to learn to understand each other, accept what can't be changed, and love each other in the way each person needs. After the therapy session, things in Peter's family began to change, slowly, but with visible signs of progress. Peter no longer offered meaningless apologies. He started taking concrete actions to show his love and care for his daughter. Lily, though she hadn't fully forgiven him, began to open up more. She was no longer as rigid in her dealings with Maria, and sometimes there were small gestures of trying to integrate. Maria no longer felt pushed out. She realized that Peter's love for her wasn't just in words, but was shown in his actions. Together, they began to rebuild old habits, sharing peaceful evenings. Though things weren't like they used to be, at least they were no longer drowning in silence and pain. The healing journey for Peter's family had just begun. There would still be many challenges ahead, but they knew that only love, forgiveness, and patience could help them overcome everything. It was a difficult journey, but one filled with hope, where every step carried a promise that they would never give up, never let this family break apart again. As time passed, the dark days slowly gave way to brighter moments. In Peter and Maria's home, the cold atmosphere and eerie silence no longer lingered. A new space was forming, not just from the walls or objects in the house, but from the changes within each person in the family. Love and forgiveness began to heal old wounds. And in every meal, every evening spent together, there was a warmth they once thought they would never find again. Peter and Maria no longer spent sleepless nights thinking about past mistakes. They started to reconnect, not through empty words or empty promises, but through actions. Peter was no longer just a husband and father working all day. He became a true partner, someone who was there when Maria needed him, someone who understood that love isn't just about sweet words, but about gestures, understanding, and simple care in everyday life. Maria, meanwhile, no longer felt alone in her own family. She realized that even though their past was filled with wounds and disappointments, only by facing those pains together could they truly heal and build a happy home. Maria didn't just love Peter, she loved the way he had changed, the way he had learned to listen and truly understand her feelings. Though the old wounds hadn't fully healed, at least now she could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Lily, Peter's daughter, also began to open up more. The days when she avoided them and acted stubborn were gradually replaced by moments of closeness. She no longer hid away, no longer built invisible walls between herself and her parents. Though she still couldn't immediately accept Maria, at least she had started to understand that replacing her mother wasn't possible, and that love is never a competition. Slowly, Lily found a way to face her emotions, and she began to learn how to love again, though it was a long journey. One summer afternoon, the whole family gathered in the backyard. The warm air and the gentle golden light of the sunset created a perfect scene. Peter was mowing the lawn, Maria was preparing dinner, and Lily sat under a tree, reading a book. The atmosphere was peaceful, and this was something they had dreamed of for so long. A peacefulness that, before, they could only imagine in their dreams. Maria paused from her work, walked over to Peter, and looked at him affectionately. She said nothing, simply gazing into his eyes, and he did the same. In that moment, they understood that no matter how many challenges life threw their way, they would face them together. No words were needed. Just the exchange of glances was enough to show they were there for each other in every present moment. Lily slowly set her book down and walked over. She saw her parents laughing together, and a strange feeling began to creep into her heart. Perhaps the days when she lived in coldness and loneliness wouldn't last forever. She began to feel the love coming from the simplest things, from the care that she had once rejected. Though she still didn't say anything, deep inside, a gentle change was taking place. When dinner was served, they sat around the table, no longer filled with questions or judgments. They simply sat there, sharing stories, the little things from the day, laughing together. Peter sat next to Maria, his hand holding hers in a silent thank you. A thank you for her persistence, for not giving up even when everything seemed on the verge of collapse. Maria smiled softly and squeezed his hand, not saying anything, but in her eyes was a sense of peace. Lily looked at the family, feeling the warmth in the air, feeling that she was no longer left behind. She couldn't express everything she felt, but deep inside, she understood that this family was ready to open its arms to welcome her, so she could rediscover herself in love, in the understanding she had never realized before. As the days passed, family therapy sessions were no longer burdens, but became opportunities to understand each other better. The family gradually learned how to listen, how to empathize, and most importantly, how to love each other in very different but truly sincere ways. Peter no longer feared the silence, for he knew that this silence wasn't a separation, but the peace of a family that was gradually healing. Lily began to join in family activities from movie nights to weekend outings. Though she still felt a little shy, and it wasn't easy to fully integrate, she had started to understand that a family wasn't a place to run away from, but a place to share, to love, and to face challenges together. Each day, Lily felt herself growing, not just from the conversations with her parents, but from the simple things they did together. Meanwhile, Peter and Maria were no longer just two people living under one roof. They had become true partners, people who learned and changed every day to become better versions of themselves. Their love story was no longer just words, but concrete actions, patience, and care for each other every day. Looking back at the road they had traveled, Peter realized that life doesn't always go according to plan. What he had lost, the pain he had endured, couldn't be undone, but what mattered most was that he had learned how to truly love, how to make his family happy. Maria also understood that love wasn't perfection, but acceptance and trying to change for one another. And Lily, the girl who once felt abandoned, now began to see her worth in this family. Peter's family was no longer perfect, but it was a real family where each person could find love, understanding, and a strong belief in the future. With the first steps taken on the healing path, they knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but at least they had each other, and that was the most valuable thing. The story of Peter, Maria, and Lily is not only a tale about family, but also a long journey of forgiveness, facing mistakes, and rediscovering love. Each event in this story, from the misunderstandings between the members to the deep wounds they had to face, serves as a lesson in patience, listening, and the importance of understanding one another in family relationships. The deepest meaning of the story is that no matter how hurt a person may be, change and healing are possible if they are truly ready to confront the past, recognize their mistakes, and open themselves to opportunities for reconciliation. Love is not something that can be maintained only with sweet words or gestures. True love is built through concrete actions, through the continuous changes in daily life, through care, and the small gestures we give to each other every day. In this story, Peter is a father, a husband, but also a man full of mistakes, trying to find himself and his family again. His wrong choices, though not always immediately obvious, are an important lesson for understanding the value of family and love. He is not perfect, And that's the point the story wants to emphasize. None of us are perfect, but from those mistakes, we can learn and grow. Every act of forgiveness begins with the realization that no one is perfect, and love is acceptance, not judgment or reproach. Maria, meanwhile, is not only a wife, but also a symbol of patience and courage. She had to endure a lot of pain, not just from Peter's misunderstandings, but from the loneliness in her heart when the family was falling apart. Maria didn't just try to heal her own wounds, but had to confront the lack of understanding from the people closest to her. The story shows that love cannot always solve everything immediately, but sometimes it requires time and patience. Maria didn't give up, even when things were difficult, and this teaches us that persistence in love will always be rewarded. Lily, the daughter in the story, represents the insecurities of children and families going through major changes. Lily didn't easily accept Maria, not just because she was the new wife, but because she felt abandoned and unnoticed by her father. Lily is the image of children going through sorrow and seeking love in a divided family. But it is also Lily who learned an important lesson about forgiveness and opening her heart. She gradually realized that, although Maria couldn't replace her mother, she was still an important part of this family. The story teaches us that no matter how hurt we are, love and compassion will help us overcome all pain. One of the strongest messages of the story is that a family is not a place without conflict or pain, but a place where everyone can learn to forgive, understand each other, and face challenges together. A family is where we can express our true emotions without fear of judgment or abandonment. The healing in this story doesn't come from avoiding the issues, but from confronting them and finding ways to resolve them together. Each step in this journey, from family therapy sessions to shared evenings, is a step toward understanding and compassion. The story also shows that change doesn't always happen immediately. After the therapy sessions and the tense conversations, Peter's family began to heal, but the road ahead was still long. They knew there would be further challenges, times of exhaustion and disappointment, but the important thing was that they had started a journey of change and growth. No one in this family gave up, and that's the most important thing. From this story, we also learned that things cannot always be accomplished immediately, and we cannot expect change to come overnight. Every relationship needs time to heal, and only patience and constant effort will help us overcome difficulties. Love, no matter how strong, also requires care and nurturing from both sides. It is through the hardest moments that we can learn valuable lessons about ourselves and the ones we love. Ultimately, this story is a reminder that love is not just about romance or beautiful moments, but about perseverance, acceptance, and always being there when others need us the most. And though life can be full of challenges, with true love, forgiveness, and understanding, we will find happiness. The journey of Peter, Maria, and Lily's family is proof of this. A journey full of hardships, but also full of hope.